Day 2 of the PRI Trade Show here in Indianapolis is just about wrapped up. We've had huge announcements that is going to have some major effects on the NHRA Mission Foods Drag Racing Series 2025 season. We have some major announcements in terms of driver lineups for next year as well in the funny car categories. And man, oh man, do we have a lot to talk about, and if depending on how you look at it, look forward to for next season. So if you like the content, be sure to subscribe to the channel today so you don't miss any of the upcoming content as we get ready for the 2025 season. Without further ado, let's get into the video.
It's like a gang initiation, right? Or exit.
Well, I alluded to it yesterday that the news that was going to come out today would be groundbreaking. It was going to have a major effect on the 2025 season. That has been announced today. Starting for the 2025 season onward, the Carolina Nationals, the second race of the NHRA Countdown to the Championship, will now become a four-wide event. Now, before you start throwing tomatoes at me, I can understand why NHRA is doing this. If you look at the crowds comparing the 4-wide Nationals to the Carolina Nationals, many of the casual fans don't go to that event. I've talked to people from the North Carolina area, both in the NASCAR industry and just casual fans alone. Many say, oh, I would love to go to the 4-wide event. Nobody ever really mentions a 2-wide event. That's kind of the problem with 4-wide racing, is when you put a gimmick in there like that, it does cause some issues for casual fans, because why would you want to go watch a regular drag race when you get double the exposure and double the horsepower for the same price? So while I get it, you also get the flip side of an integral part to the championship. You have something like this being added, where now a guy who would have regularly, if he finished third, would move on to the next round. Now he's going to go out in round 1, and that's going to have some major effects on the championship points battle. And now you have in a position where if someone like Matt Hagan or Jack Beckman or Austin Prock doesn't make it to the semifinals after one round of racing, that could end their championship hopes right at the get-go of the countdown. So this is going to have some major effects on it. Whether you love it or not, it is here. We'd had an opportunity to talk not only with Matt Hagan, but also the general manager and track president for Charlotte Motor Speedway, Greg Walter. So you just made the announcement along with NHRA. We're going 4-wide racing in the countdown. First thoughts of what you think of an idea like that?
Well, you might love it, hate it, but it's here. You know what I mean? So we're going to have to figure it out as a driver, as a team. Talk about throwing a wrench in the pile there, man. Like it's going to be interesting. I mean, because the championship really comes down to those 6 races, and talk about a game changer, man. Like that definitely could be something that throws that wrench in there that changes the whole game for someone that's either a little bit behind or leading really and messing up. So the 4-wides they're different, man. You got to really focus. You got to pay attention to what's going on, and it's like when we run them, you got to make them go to the end no matter what. You can't see what those other 2 cars go. So if your stuff's beat up and on fire and doing whatever, you're still foot in the woods. So there'll be some big boomers. There'll be some tire smokers. There'll be all kinds of stuff going on, and especially in the countdown, you're put it this way, I'm putting my mouthpiece in to make sure the car goes to the end.
This is such a controversial move to do. Putting a 4-wide race when statistically we just did 2-wide races. Back when this first started, it was such a hot topic issue amongst not just the fans, but even the drivers. How crazy is this going to be, not only amongst the fans, but in the pits as well, for drivers to try and comprehend doing something like this?
I think it's going to be crazy. It's going to be a lot to wrap your head around. I've done everything in a 4-wide, from red light to not stage the car to win the race to, going out there and setting low ET. It's one of those things where you're just going to have to learn to adapt. That's just what we get paid to do, is adapt to different situations and learn. But there's always that human error, right? Like there's not been a 4-wide that I haven't seen where someone didn't double bulb or turn the top bulbs off or didn't stage the car or didn't know what lane they were in. So you're always going to factor that in. So I do think it's going to be a game changer. And, like I said, I think the internet's going to break right now, and everybody's going to have comments. And, whether you like it or you don't like it, it's what they just announced. And as racers, we'll have to figure it out.
Like you said, this is like dropping a pipe bomb in the middle of a crowded area and letting the world go on fire. Yeah. The internet's going to be on fire for the next couple of days arguing about this. What would your message be to those naysayer fans that might turn off the TV because of a thing like this?
Yeah, I think that we're racing, right? And in today's world, in this economy and everything else, we have an opportunity to race, whether it's 4-wide, 2-wide, whatever it is. We're just blessed to go out here and race. And so I don't care if we're running 6-wide, you know what I mean? Like, let's go. I want to put my helmet on. I want to put my mouthpiece in and have an opportunity to kick someone's ass beside of me.
Right, so you just made probably the biggest announcement of the season for the next year or so. Charlotte Motor Speedway, not shy at all of making crazy decisions to try and get fans in the stands, even back when Bruce Smith were into place doing bus jumps. Just kind of describe the process of getting this thing done. How did this conversation start between you and the NHRA to put a deal like this together to make a 4-wide race in the countdown?
So we've had this idea for a while, obviously, right? We got 4 lanes, 4 great lanes of racing. The 4 wides in the spring have always been popular with the fans. But when you have a decision of this magnitude, you got to be sure that you get all the stakeholders to buy in. So we've talked to NHRA for a couple of years about this idea about adding it to the countdown. There was a lukewarm attitude towards it, like you really got to convince the teams. And so getting to know the teams, getting to know their needs. But at the end of the day, everybody wants to put on a great show for the fans. And adding this to the countdown does that. And you think about it, every sport, every race series has a representation of every challenge a team endures. Adding a 4-wide race to the countdown does that.
You mentioned trying to work with the teams to make them get on board with an idea like this. Can you kind of go a bit more in depth on what it takes to get that done? Because I know this is a really hot topic button issue amongst teams, even today after doing this for 10 years.
So in any sport, you have shareholders, right? People who have a stake, a financial stake in the success of any endeavor. And with NHRA, the teams are a vital part of that. And so you begin to have conversations just one-on-one. You go in the haulers and you talk to them, what do you think about this idea? What are the objections? And then you answer those or you dispel them. And eventually everyone kind of comes to a consensus of what is best for the sport. And that's what helped us, is that the drivers, the teams, they all wanted something great for the fans. At the heart, they're all showmen and show ladies, and they all want something great for the fans.
So I remember talking to fans in the North Carolina area about this race. People always talk about when going to NHRA races, I've always wanted to go to the 4-wide. People don't really mention the 2-wide. Did that have an influence on making a decision like this to try and get more fans in the seats for that second race?
Yeah, 4-wides, the spring race has always been tremendously more popular than the fall. And we've always wondered why. And in NHRA racing in the Southeast, you're going up against college football, you're going up against professional football. So for us, it's kind of like Disney World, right? If you have the same rides year after year, I've been there, I've done that. But we have something unique with those 4 lanes. Why not utilize those and give that challenge to the competitors that they had early in the season? It's kind of like they do 4-wide in the spring, and then they forget about it. Let's bring it back into the playoffs, have that challenge, that stage gate they had to cross in order to get to the championship.
One of the things that's awesome about ZMAX Dragway is just how fast that facility is, especially when the sun goes down and the lights come up. As soon as I was talking about this announcement with a couple of people, they're all saying, please make this a night race. Is that something that you can even do? Is that a possibility to make this thing possibly in the darkness?
Everything's a possibility, right? We've had the lights, we have the facility, that's why we're blessed. That track is top-notch, and we can do a lot of things. Some of it depends on television, some of it depends on the teams, but those conversations can be had. So we'll see how it goes. Look, you're exactly right. Your point about the weather and the temperatures, you can get a lot of speed out of that track. And we've set some records out there. So I like the way you think. I love the way the fans think. I think that's something we ought to talk about down the road.
This first track never went 3:30 to the 8th mile. Last question, an announcement like this, like I've said before, it's going to be very controversial to among the older fans of the sport that have been used to the 2-wides of the Don Bernome and Don Garlits era. What would your message be to those fans to give this a chance to go out there and watch this, even after the 10 years of argumenting that's been going on because of the 4-wides?
I think we want, when we get to a champion at the end of the season, we want a champion who has mastered everything, right? Altitude, weather, all the challenges that they incur during a race weekend. Racing 4-wide puts a different set of demands on a driver. And so don't you want that champion to be a true champion, because they have mastered everything. Adding a 4-wide to the countdown gives us a true champion at the end of the season.
So hopefully that does somewhat calm down some tendencies. The only thing I can see that would make this event better, or maybe have the fans look at it more favorably, is if this is a night race. Charlotte Motor Speedway in the nighttime is one of the best venues on the calendar because of how cold it gets in that September air, because of where you're at in Charlotte near sea level. That track knows how to turn the heat up and knows how to make some really fast mile-an-hour speeds. We saw it as the first track to ever get 330 miles an hour to the 8th mile. even with the issues that track has when it rains, back when the track first opened, you had weepers and they had to cancel the event. The track has since come back, and it is one of the best facilities on the calendar. So if you're able to get that race tonight, I think that is the one thing that'll make the fans not revolt in anger and walk away from this event entirely. Because if you could put up a 340-mile-an-hour run, if you could put up another 330 miles to the 8th, you're looking at something that could really be beneficial not only to the countdown but the season as a whole. But we're going to have to wait and see. We have a whole year to hear about this. I remember looking on Facebook. It is a war zone already. The war zone's going on Instagram, Twitter, especially on the Facebook side, if you know how drag racing Facebook goes. And I know you guys are going to put it down in the comments below. So please give me your thoughts on this, because I would love to read it. I do read comments, as a matter of fact. I may not reply. Trust me, I see all of them. Behave yourself. Other announcements that were made today. The big question for 2025 was regarding who was going to be driving the John Force Racing Chevrolet Camaro. That announcement has been made today. Not only that, but an announcement from Peak themselves that they're going to be extending their partnership with John Force Racing for the next several years. As for the driver that is going to be driving that Peak Chevrolet Funny Car Camaro, it is going to be none other than Fast Jack Beckman. He has passed his driver interview application process. He will have a full-time ride for 2025. He had an incredible 2024 season for the part-time season that he had, got the rust off of it, won 2 races including the Pomona Finals and an all JFR final, and back at St. Louis as well, finished second in the championship, so accomplished all the checklist boxes that John Force Racing had for him. I believed that he was going to take it. I heard some rumor that Robert Hyde was going to take it. I'm partially glad that's not true, because we want Jack Beckman in NHRA. That is a great thing to have. They built a chassis for him. The team sung praises about him all of the second half of the season. I couldn't see any other driver taking that spot other than Jack Beckman. We have highlights from that, as well as the car Jack Beckman will be driving. They unveiled that as well. Let's take a look at that, and then we're going to hear from the new driver for the 2025 season.
So first and foremost, this has been probably one of the most trying years, I guess you could say. From the roller coaster of John's ascent to almost leading the championship, to June, to where do we go next, to who fills the shoes. And I mean, this answer is pretty easy for us. We've obviously seen with the outpouring with the fans, we know this is the right place for us to be. Peak is making a long-term commitment to John Force Racing. We're not going anywhere for several years. And let me tell you this, based on the last 8 races, it's a very easy decision of who fills that seat for John. And I'd like to introduce the driver for 2025, and that'd be Jack Beckman of John Force's 243 Chevrolet Camaro. I guess that makes it official.
That makes it official.
I had an 8-race interview. It went well.
Is everybody ready?
Sending me to the back.
All right, Jack, so I guess your job interview went well. You're back for 2025. Talk about what that means.
Yeah, the 8-race job application process went well. You know, I was hoping that maybe this would happen, and we still don't know long-term what John wants to do in the car, but for him to have the support and the belief in me to stick me back in his car for a full season, for a legit run at a championship, and I think we're going to make a legit run.
Reflect on what it means to have a brand like Peak and also Cornwall Tools and all these guys that signed off on you to do this right. Say, hey, we like this cat. Let's bring him back next year.
So John Force Racing is a lot like a family. For better and for worse, it's a lot like a family. And you have to have sponsors to go racing because it's all about money. But the fact that the Peak brand, the people that they bring to the races, their buyers that we get to entertain at the races, we get a chance to act like family with all of them. And Cornwell, it's an amazing group. You got to have tools to work on race cars. And I have a former neighbor of mine that quit his career to become a Cornwell dealer. Everything is just coming full circle. To be involved and embedded with Peak, with Chevy, with Cornwell, we're going to go out and we're going to win a bunch of races. We're going to go out and we're going to contend for a championship. And we're going to do it and represent people that we really believe in.
You know, when you first got into the car back at Brainerd, the question was how long would it take to get cobwebs off? Could he contend for a championship? Now, you have your own championship. You've netted yourself within this team to the point where they love you, and you've got the cobwebs off and you're back better than ever. Does that make you more excited going into 2025 knowing you have a legitimate shot at running for this championship?
So the answer to your question is yes, but I'm not better than ever. I still need to improve in race day driving, pedaling the car, reacting to what it's doing when it's shaking the tires, and you can't do that in a simulator. And you can't think your way through how you will respond when the car shakes out there because it's different at every track. It's different every run. The weather changes how you should respond with throttle control in the car. I'll get that back. I have to be satisfied with what I've done because I know I've tried my best, and I'm driving a car that knows how to win races. I'm driving for a team that's used to winning races, and they expect to win races.
And then the last question I got for you, I talked to Matt Hagan back at the TSR 25th anniversary party. He talked about the differences of Don Schumacher being that no-nonsense attitude. You're here to do a job and do it. You go to a group like this, John still has that same kind of mentality, but he has a lot more personality, laid-back kind of style along with the group. What are the differences of working at a crew like TSR than coming to a group like JF?
Well, to clarify, Don Schumacher never raised his voice. But he had a way of letting you know you weren't achieving. And John also has a way of doing that in a very different way. What I'm hoping is I never get that lecture at all, because it means we're doing everything right. But I've loved John Force since the late 70s as a kid going to Orange County and watching him. And I've certainly had a good relationship with him for the last 20 years, but I've never been an employee of his. 2025 is going to be interesting because John only was at the races twice in 2024. And frankly, we were running so well, there was no opportunity for critique there. I am actually looking forward to getting input from John in those situations where, as a driver, it can benefit me.
And the last announcement made today regarding the Jim Head Racing team. Blake Alexander, if you missed yesterday's video, announced he'll be driving the Chad Green Motorsports funny car Camaro, splitting now with Hunter Green. So he's going to be going on his own in a partnership role with Chad Green Motorsports. Now that left an open seat at Jim Head Racing. That announcement was made today that it would be none other than 2023 World Series of Pro Mod winner Spencer Hyde will be taking over that role. If you don't remember, Spencer Hyde has run a part-time schedule in the Top Fuel, mostly on the West Coast races with Elite Motorsports and partnered with some other teams as well. But now he will be returning in 2025 in a full-time role. He still has to get his transfer license to go from Top Fuel into Funny Car, but as of right now, Spencer Hyde will be driving the Jim Head Racing car for the full 2025 season, which I think is a huge news because now that adds one more full-time entry. Of course, Blake Alexander ran about 18 to 20 races, but to now have him on the full calendar is going to be a big addition because we know just what that Jim Head Racing car can do. They have won races in the past. They have gone rounds before. It can be fast, so it's going to be a big question of how quickly can Spencer Hyde adapt to driving a fuel funny car. Drivers in the past that have success with that is the likes of Matt Hagan, who's gone on to win 4 championships in the NHRA funny car division. Will Spencer Hyde be the next driver to do that? We'll have to wait and see, but first, let's hear from your newest funny car full-time driver. Spencer Hyde, you made a pretty big announcement. You're going nitro racing next year, but unlike the past few years, you're doing it for a full season. Tell me about this deal and how it came together.
Yeah, we're doing the whole year. Jim Head called me about 3 weeks ago, said he needed a driver for his funny car, and I told him I've never drove a funny car, but I'm willing to learn. So anyways, we got together and put a deal together, and we're going to go run the full deal.
And kind of tell me about the partners behind this, because Jim Head is used to being more of a part-time team. So to see them going into a full-time season, with even though they're known for saving the parts that they got, it's got to take a big deal to put that together. So kind of tell us the story of how that happened.
Yeah, they've ran the better part of the last couple seasons with Blake in the car. I think they did 18 out of 20 last year. But yeah, he told me he wanted to do all 20. Jim's does this because he loves it too, and he used to drive, and he just decided to put someone else in the seat a few years ago, but yeah, we've got we're currently seeking some partners, but Jim's company Head Inc. is gonna help us out for the most part of it, and our family business Hyde Construction is helping out as well, and I've got a couple other guys lined up that we'll announce here shortly.
You know, Pro Mod has a good history in funny car, most notably with the likes of Matt Hagan, now a 4-time champion of the series. many people look as Funny Car as a stepping stone for pro mod drivers to get up into the next level. Do you feel that might be somewhat true? Have you talked to any Funny Car drivers that have that pro mod experience about what it's like making that transition curve to get into a nitro Funny Car?
I definitely see the similarities. They're both short wheelbase cars, difficult cars to drive, they're unpredictable. I haven't drove a Funny Car yet, but I got a pretty good idea how it's going to be like. With the rowdiness of the Pro Mod and the acceleration of the top fuel car, it's just going to, I'm assuming, kind of be a blend of the two. Other than Hagen, I don't really know a whole lot of other guys that have raced competitively in both. Antron was down at the Snowbirds there in the Pro Mod for the first time after coming out of a fuel car, so we talked about some stuff there, and yeah, you know what, I'm excited to learn and go through the transition, but Jim's got some good people around there too and lots of experience, so I'm looking forward to learning from those people and honing my skills in on Funny Car racing.
Your story has a very interesting background to it. You came to the Drag Illustrator World Series of Pro Mod 2 years ago. You weren't as famous as you are now, but you were still a very lethal racer, which is the whole reason Wes invited you to that race. You went from the number 32 seed to go on to win that race, and since your career has exploded to driving top field dragsters, now doing this as a full-time gig. Just kind of talk about the whirlwind of the past 2 years. I mean, can you even believe it? Have you been able to even slow down and appreciate what has happened since that win?
Yeah, I don't even know if it's really sunk in yet that this deal's kind of come together, but definitely the last year and a half since we won the World Series of Pro Mod, things have changed for me racing-wise significantly. Put a little bit more pressure on me to continue to perform well with the Pro Mod car, and we have. I've got a great team behind me with the Pro Mod, and my guys have been with me for a lot of them, 15, 16 years. My Uncle Ron's been with me right out of junior dragster. And my crew chief, Mark Savage, has been with me for the last 5 years, and we gel well together and run that thing well. And, I'm a little saddened that we're not going to get to run that car, much this year. And I feel like I'll miss that part of it, but, that was a stepping stone to get me to lead me to this opportunity, and I'm, very thankful and very excited for it.
And the last question for this, this is going to be your first time driving a fuel Funny Car. You have a lot of things to learn before you were able to start going up there racing with the big dogs. Do you have kind of a checklist of things you want to accomplish maybe in these first few races of this first season to where no matter what happens, you can get out of the car and be like, okay, I at least got this done to start things? I
just want to do things right, do things safe. There's always, you're always learning with these things. They're a constant battle to get down the track. They're tough to drive, so probably just sit back and listen to the right people's advice and get a feel for the car and make good laps, and then we'll focus on winning some races.
So that's going to wrap up our day 2 coverage of the PRI Trade Show here in Indianapolis. Many of the people that have been making the announcements have left, so Saturday will more likely not be any coverage, especially not for me. I'm going to be competing in the Moon Car 24, a charity event that's going to be running this weekend. So if you want to support that, it'd be twitch.tv/Moonhead. We're raising money for Riley, it's Toys for Tots. I got mine confused because we're doing another event with Riley as well. So if you want to support that, please do come watch. It's going to be a fun time over there. Donate some money for a good cause. They've put on a great show every year, and we're going to have a really fun time with some Marker Battles competing in that race and the Mazda MX-5 for 24 hours at Martinsville. So thank you guys so much for watching. Put down in the comments what you think of the 4 White Nationals, what you think of Jack Beckman, and as well Spencer Hyde being in the seat for 2025. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment down below, and share it to everybody you know so everybody knows what's going on in the world of drag racing. Follow me on all social media pages down below, MoneyMac03 on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And until the next bombshell news drops, this has been my